Progressive and regressive strengthening teaches the nervous system how to control newly acquired range of motion gained from the contract-relax agonist and antagonist stretching, along with the active rotational movements at the outer limits of articular motion. This will look to improve strength, neural drive, and function in long-term and short-term ranges. The tasks are placed in order from simple to complex. Cramping is a common complaint or symptom, but it is okay and will get better. It's thought of as confusion of the nervous system. Fighting through the cramps, if able, will decrease once the nervous system is aware of how to control the new range of motion. Progressive and regressive angular loading is designed to improve end range control. We have expanded the range of motion with stretching and articular end range motions. Now we will work on the control of those motions with the use of concentric, eccentric, and more dynamic motions. Isometrics are great, but are they good enough? The answer really is no. There are way too many variables in the range of motions in performance. There must be a need to be able to control all the movement patterns dynamically. We can use the term of the SAID principle, specific adaptations of implied demands. Simply stated, you are prepared for what you train for. For an example, in football, holding an isometric pose will not help you tackle your opponent. You must learn how to eccentrically load, unless the opponent will more than likely cause injury to your extended arm. It's important to note, do not bypass any of the exercises. They must move in a logical sequence with control before you can start the next phase. In order, here is a sequential pattern that should be followed. First, we have passive range holds, which are antagonist activations, placed in a passive end range articulation position. The purpose is to perform a regressive yielding isometric contraction, remove the passive support, hold the range of motion actively for as long as possible. Irradiation can be used to amplify the contraction. This locks in the other body parts to limit motion. Also, it maximizes the amount of motor units to assist with the contraction. If the patient can hold the position for at least 10 seconds with adequate control, you can progress to the next step. Remember, you're not asking them to lift off, only hold the contraction. There is a very minute control component to this task. The sequence of sets, reps, and durations could be as follows for passive range holds. Shorter holds at higher reps into longer holds at lower reps, plus controlled eccentric failure. Here's an example. 2 seconds of a hold times 15 reps, progress to 5 seconds of a hold for 6 reps, progress to 10 seconds of a hold for 3 reps, and then finally progress to 30 seconds of a hold for 1 rep. Second in line are passive range liftoffs, which are antagonist contractions again, also known as a regressive increase in neural drive. These are generally more complex than end range holds. Although there is no external resistance, its concentric motion patterns make it slightly more difficult. There is still very little control component to the exercise with a minimal neural drive, but more than that of end range holds. Cramping is common. This can be considered an introduction to concentric activity. You complete passive motion first, then deduct 15 to 20 degrees from the end range, and then you lift off from there. You don't need to hold, but you should really own the motion. The sequence of sets, reps, and durations for passive range liftoffs could be as follows. Further from passive range of motion at higher reps into closer to passive range of motion at lower reps, plus controlled eccentric failure. Here's some examples. 20 degrees from passive range of motion for 12 to 15 reps, preceded by 10 degrees from passive range of motion for 8 to 10 reps, preceded by 5 degrees from passive range of motion for 6 to 8 reps, and then basically near or at end range for passive range of motion. We call these sticky reps for 3 to 5 repetitions. Third, we can use positional isometrics. These are used to reinforce ranges, stabilize articulations, induce range-specific neurological adaptations, and help with motor learning. Commonly, can be used with or for hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Marfan syndrome patients, etc. Make sure to work all the way through their passive range of motion. This contraction consists of both agonist and antagonist contractions, better known as progressive and regressive loading in multiple planes or multi-angle isometrics. Fourth, we have dynamic passive range liftoffs. Passively position articulation at its end range of motion, minus approximately 5 to 10 degrees. The subject would perform a regressive angular contraction, lifting away from the passive support, holding this lift off as you perform a clearance of any object in the way. Start making the challenges more dynamic through a range of motion with control. This increases the complexity of neural drive. Lastly, we have end range small circle motion patterns. These are more conducive to shoulders and hips. This is the most physical category out of all of them. Actively position an articulation at its end range of motion. Perform small controlled circles or full end range articulations with some type of load placed distally, like a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Repeat both clockwise and counterclockwise until fatigue or failure. Asking the body to go into the newly acquired range, muscles are constantly turning on and off in this circular position. Progressions of the exercises could be from less time under tension and less zone division into more time under tension and greater zone division. Some examples would be like this: 10 seconds each direction, 20 seconds total; 15 seconds each direction, 30 seconds total; 20 seconds each direction, 40 seconds total; and then 25 to 30 seconds each direction, roughly 50 to 60 seconds total. Also, we can add some load distally at the end, putting a little more tension and force through the articulation of the joint and the muscles. Just remember that antagonist is synonymous with regressive. It's a muscle on the side that's contracting. And agonist is synonymous with progressive. It's usually on the side of the muscle that has more of a length to it. I'm trying to make these terms synonymous with one another for the lectures.